this silver color is reserved just for the 1886. You don't get that. What happened? Oh wow, it's an EQC. Arey, what are you doing here?
I was in Jaipur on a business trip. I saw all your lovely tweets, enjoying a good time in Pushkar. I thought, let me drop in.
And in an EQC, you pulled that also off.
Yeah, you were on an EQC, so I just took our dealer car and came in here.
You know, it's possible now to do these long distance trips, but this is very cool and quite a cool surprise as well. Good to see you.
Meet you here. Yes, all the way right in Pushkar. After a long time. Yes. Now that we are here, why don't we go in the car, maybe have a look around Pushkar also? Maybe.
Hello? You're driving? Yeah. Let's go. So it's nice to be in the hinterland in that sense, in an EQC. That's not what we would typically envision the car in this environment, but of course it seems so totally at home.
Yeah, that's true. It's a very different setup to drive. For me also, it's never taken out the EQC so far off, and it's a good experience.
But tell me, when you were launching the car in the first place, you know, when you were at the strategy part of your plan, what was the real value that you hoped to derive from this? I get, of course, that there is a lot that the brand derives in terms of, you know, all the rub-off that it gets. So that part is very evident. But besides that, what else were you hoping to achieve?
No, for us actually, from a company perspective, we were very clear on our sustainability targets, and we knew that in 10 years' time, the industry would shift. Then the big question was about the timing, and the often asked question is India ready for EV? And more so 2 years back, we have seen it now coming down. So we said that if we don't do it, who else will? Because we have the products, we also have to take that risk and leap of faith. We thought it's a good idea to introduce these cars to the market, take feedback, and then think of the long-term steps. But frankly, the market exceeded our expectations. The moment we launched the car, we had much more people who were waiting for these cars, and that's something which we never anticipated. And this demand, we only opened in 6 markets, the metro cities, but the demand was from across India, and that's something. The conventional wisdom thought that you need charging, you need those infrastructure, but consumers were ready to try out something new as the EQC.
What part of that surprised your headquarters? Because I'm sure the allocation was also conservative from that perspective at the start. And now suddenly you're saying, hold on, we can do a lot better than this in terms of numbers.
No, the question they ask us, continue to ask us, are you sure that you're ordering so many cars? And where in India is the infrastructure? How are people using it? In fact, we have to send them pictures of housing societies, of people, installing these wall box chargers. And also, if you look at the product, we are not selling the car by itself. When we introduced this car, we said that what are the pain points for the customer, and the number one being charging. So the wall box, the installation of the wall box. In fact, even before we sell an EQC, we do a complimentary site visit, by an electrician who comes in, who checks the feasibility of a charger at home or at office. And once the feasibility is confirmed, we go ahead with a sale transaction. So that actually eliminates that at least there is 1 or 2 charging points at the consumer's home. The second thing, to look into this from a package is the entire cost of ownership, because people thought that servicing, what will happen after 5 years, will the price of the car reduce? So that's why we give this 5 years package, 8 years battery warranty. And this actually gave a lot of confidence to consumers to go out and try, because they know, hey, the residual value is now assured. The charging is there, and I can easily use it for my home office commute. And that's what actually really was the tipping point for consumers to start adopting and buying these cars.
And of course, I mean, there's 2 parts to that now, because you're right, 2 years ago the picture was very different. Now you suddenly have competition vehicles also in the market. You have a little bit more of an understanding, I think, even with the policymakers. They are approaching it a little differently. Both those are good things anyway.
No, frankly, we are really happy that everybody else, not only luxury car makers, but even mass market brands are now really getting into the EV game. This market needs education also, and we alone as a luxury player, we will do our best to do that, but I think more and more people coming into the segment definitely will educate consumers. So we are very happy with more players coming in, more players announcing their intent to come in. On the other side, the good part of the government is there has been some stability as when you talk about EVs. The GST is at 5%, that's great. When you also look at the road tax, almost you can say 70% of the key automotive market, the road tax is almost zero, because all the state governments, because that's a state subject, even they have taken the big leap and they have made the taxation zero, and that has been now stable and seems it will remain stable for the next 4 to 5 years time. So that gives a lot of encouragement also to introduce new products, new cars, and will drive faster adoption of EVs for sure.
So yeah, when you look at what's happening with Mercedes-Benz globally, messaging that's coming out of headquarters, a lot of that has got accelerated as well. We're suddenly hearing about different models. They're not waiting for the next motor show. Suddenly they'll announce like plans for 2 or 3 different segments, and of course the larger intent of going all electric. These are things which are now already happening. They're in motion. What part of that comes to India? How do you react to it, and how do you strategize for it?
Yeah, see, what has also changed significantly in 2 years is we have also moved away from tailpipe emission to overall sustainability, because with electric it's a given that it's a zero emitting vehicle, but when we talk about sustainability as a topic, what we do with the data emerging out of the car, for example, how do we take care of that? What do we do with the recyclability, with the renewability also of all the components that goes in the car? For example, the new EQE, we have committed we will make it from 100% renewable, recyclable steel. There is something called green steel which has come up, and so all these things are going to accelerate. And even in India now, our current facility in Pune, Chakan is almost 80% sustainable, powered by sustainable energy, and by end of next year we are also committing to be 100% renewable. So that's on one part of the story. Now in terms of products, to answer your question, I think the EQC has given a lot of confidence to us and also to our colleagues back in headquarters that yes, there can be future, and therefore the good part is we now have a range. There is a big portfolio to choose from. Looking at what suits for India in terms of the roads, in terms of consumers, large families, we are also trying to look at which cars may be the best.
So I know you've spent a lot of time with the EQC before. Today you've had the chance to drive it even more when you come in to surprise me. Your favorite feature on the car? What do you like the best?
Well, on the positive side, I like the sound. There is no sound at all. So sometimes it's just noiseless, and that's the first thing which strikes you when you get into the car and start driving. Of course, but you also miss sometimes. So this is one feature which has both sides of the coin. You love it. At the same time, sometimes being so much tuned to the IC engine world, you can say you sometimes need that. But I think that's something amazing. Apart from that, specifically for the EQC, I think the entire telematics along with fit and healthy package, I think we have a fantastic package to, it takes care of the overall ambience, sets it up the way you want it. I think these are something that our consumers and target group also looks forward. Today, post-pandemic, I think being fit and healthy is the biggest thing on people's list. So the car is able to, in some manner, not that it can make somebody healthy, but in some way also complement your lifestyle, and I think that's quite cool.
And the good thing is that all this will become sort of hygiene on the future products that you were talking about. Whatever comes now, we know that this technology exists or this capability exists, so it will only trickle into all those other cars as well. That's kind of
exactly.
But speaking of those cars, the fact that you would look at a wider portfolio and maybe in quicker time than you would have otherwise thought 5 years ago. At what stage do you start thinking of local production?
So this is actively under consideration.
And I know you guys are more aggressive about it in a good way. You're very committed to that target. So which is why it becomes an obvious question.
No, I think what we have an excellent plant in Pune. We are also looking at whether how to set it up for the future. And electric is a natural progression for sure. It's only a matter of time. So it's not whether we will do local production. It's only by when. And for that, we need a global supply chain in place, which is also stable, because we do, CKD, SKD kind of a production network in India. So for that, the global supply chain to supply all the components, parts, we need a lot of Indian suppliers to be ready. Because today we have many suppliers in and around Chakan, Pune who supply us components. Now they need to also be ready to make some of these components for us locally. So that's EQ specific, yeah. And that's something work in progress is all I can say right now. And for us, it's only a matter of time. It's not whether we do it, but
But this
how
is
fast
part
we
of
can-
your active consideration for the future planning. This is not something that you've put off for another day.
No, for sure. Because I think the success for us in India is about localizing. So we have now 13 odd products. We localized the AMG also last year, and now we have 3 AMG products which are localized, doing extremely well. So it shows that customers are ready to find, if you give them a good value, which can be achieved by localization, definitely they will go for it. But electric is a bit more complex compared to normal powertrains, and investments are also much bigger and significant. So timing is going to be crucial, but there is active studies on by when we can introduce, how fast we can do that.
Well, all I'll say is, as the outsider, that I will not be surprised, or actually I will be surprised if it's not you who does it first, because we also have that expectation now, in terms of the scale that you have brought to your India operation, that this becomes like a natural progression. You mentioned, I agree, I'll do the same. You mentioned AMG, so it's a good segue for me, because globally the conversation has really got dominated by this new obsession that even the media has had, right, of saying, how does EQ go into that AMG space? There is some talk about what's going to happen, what sort of products we can expect. Personally for you, is that exciting?
Yes, I think, see, a lot of people also confuse the instant acceleration and high torque of an EV compared to a performance car, and there is a natural tendency to compare. But I think the performance car has a bit different attributes, the ride, the handling, so it has to be tuned properly also to be a proper performance car. So it's just not that acceleration and torque feeling that you get. So AMG and EQ in an AMG avatar will offer some of those, and maybe something on the sound also. Hopefully. So that should make it a much more potent package. So I am personally looking forward for the EV version of the AMG.
But do you have any hints on when that is likely to happen? Is there any talk about what target date or year they may have for such a transition?
No, I think if you see, what we have told is after 2025 we are not going to introduce any new IC engines. And if that's a statement, that applies to all product lines, including Maybach and others. So we already showed the G also, for that matter. So all the brands for sure will be electrified at a very fast pace. Timings, I think it's a bit early also from the Indian context to comment, but it's there. It's all there in the next 3 to 5 years horizon that we can see.
This is such a sight, right? Like, I know this is unique perhaps to some parts of the world like India, where on a public road we have this car, epitome of engineering and everything new in tech, and then you have that, a camel cart being used as regular. I mean, this is not a tourist camel cart. This is like just they are using it for point A to point B. Crossing that is kind of interesting.
It's a bit surreal, You have the future of mobility crossing the past, or
Absolute
even the present,
past.
you can say.
Most rudimentary, basic form of transport. Yeah,
that's been interesting actually.
That can only happen, I think, in India. It's a nice part of that story, being in this restaurant.
And in Pushkar maybe,
And in Pushkar, yes. Now, so last thing then, as things stand today, electric or AMG? Where does your heart beat faster?
No, heart for sure beats faster with the
Oh, that was,
AMG.
I shouldn't have phrased it like that. That was a very obvious answer. But no, where's the pull factor more for
No,
you?
I think for a daily commute, for me personally, spend a lot of time going to office and work. I think electric is the solution, and you just love either to be driven or even drive yourself, both ways. It's quiet, it's calm, you can do your calls, your work, many other things. So it's a very functional car in that sense, yes. But however, yes, on the racetrack, or you want to really drive a bit fast and edgy, the AMGs definitely score there.
Well, which is where that culmination of those two might be very interesting, because then it'll sort of tick more boxes in that sense.
Yes.
But also be purpose built. I think that's going to be the trick.
Yeah.